Hello everyone, this month's Messer tutorial continues on the same theme as previous month's one. That is, we're going to tackle the next Hauptstück and see what important lesson it can teach us, or rather what kind of tactical fencing problem it will help us solve. The Zornhau is pretty great, as it is not only an introductory chapter, but also worked great for teaching people to defend their openings and create threat at the same time, by forcing a bind on their partner. The Wecker is then less obvious, unfortunately. The text very clearly states that it works against opponents who fence from steer, as well as against cuts from below and above. We will learn later that long point will do just fine in these situations though. So what problem are we actually trying to solve here? Thankfully, I was doing some free play with Leon a while back, and he was fencing from steer all the time, and managing to pretty much convincingly shut me down every time I tried to apply pressure by cutting into the bind with the Zornhau. He would either just extend his arm into a hang to thrust, or cut around to entrusthau me into next week. Fencing from steer is a pretty good hard counter to people who want to enter with a Zornhau, and that's an interesting angle to take today. How do we get into an advantageous bind against the steer? This is where the Wecker comes in. It changes the angle of incidence of your initial cut, which improves your leverage on your partner's blade. This in turn means that you can overbind it from where going into a high hang in yourself will mean that you have taken control of this bind. All in all, it's a more roundabout way than the humbled Zornhau, but it's very effective against steer. To practice this, it might be a good idea to first put the Messer down. Have your partner extend their arm, now try to push it to the side. Should be quite easy, right? Now have them retract the arm a bit, like so. Pushing it to the side should have just become quite a bit harder. Try to see what you can do to still push that arm to the side. Think out of the box. It might be that you came up with at least one of the following ideas. One is to get closer, because what works for them also works for you. 2, try it from an angle to create some leverage. Or 3, use your entire body to apply that leverage. If we now take up the Messer, that should translate to the following tips. First, get quite close. You need to be able to cut the Wecker to your partner's Messer without committing to the step. Use the thumb grip in combination with turning your wrist to launch the cut, meaning you cut at the angle needed to create the lever. And after having taken the threat of the point away, improve your leverage by making a cross step towards your partner's foot. This gives you a great overbind to wind to the hang from. Sometimes I cross step with my front foot, and sometimes I start with the rear foot. There's no right or wrong answer here, as long as you kind of move across that line to really improve your ability to leverage against the opponent's blade. If done well, you should now be able to shut down your partner's attempts at thrusting you and cutting around from steer. In case you miss with your winding, as in you thrust past their head and just push your short edge against their neck, they might get a second shot at trying to cut around. So in that case, be ready to wind to the other high hanging, in order to make sure you can still close your opening and continue to create threat to your partner. A next step in this drill is to add other tactical elements to it, such as movement, transitions into guards, a partner that can also try to initiate from time to time, etc. Especially with the last example, it's interesting to see at which point your original plan of using the Wecker will still work, and at which point it's better to decide to not go for it and disengage instead. And that's it really. The Wecker might be a bit of a niche technique, but it has its uses and will definitely slap when used correctly at those times. You can definitely lift the exercises from this video and turn them into a bit of a class, because they have been designed with some learning progression in mind. So if you do that, let me know how it goes. Cheers and enjoy. See you over the next one.